Hello friends, and welcome back to Figure Study, where we are keeping this whole NemeSeptember thing going with a look at Universe Nemesis Prime, the other Universe Nemesis Prime. That is the one that is a repaint of Big Convoy, the Beast Wars Neo Mammoth Optimus Prime, I believe. And this is something interesting because I have already covered this figure before. Not this specific figure, but I've covered this mold before. And the thing is, I wanted to like it, but I just couldn't really get into it that well. And it was a little disappointing because it's a cool, interesting mold, and it does interesting stuff with Optimus Prime, but it just it didn't really do it for me. I also got the recent Takara Tomy reissue that had the more show-accurate color scheme, so it was brighter, more vibrant. The Mammoth actually had pupils. I kept that thing for I think a month and then sold it off again because it just didn't do it for me. But in Nemesis colors, that I'm into. So yes, Nemesis Prime, Universe Nemesis Prime is just that figure again, but in black and silver and red. And it speaks to me so much better than the other Prime versions. And I can't necessarily say why a simple color swap makes that big a difference to me, but it just works so much better here. The Mammoth is still more or less a brick, covered in panels, as is the case with this mold in its entirety. There's no version of this mold that isn't just a brick with visible panels all over the place, no matter how well you get it lined up. But I'm okay with that. It's still an interesting alt mode. I appreciate the fact that he has some goofy but still kind of interesting gimmicks, like the tusks that you can raise up by pushing the ears back, the switch on the top of the head that you can pull to make the trunk go up and down, and his little posable tail. It's a brick, but I like it so much better in this color scheme. The gradient, I feel like, that they've got going on down here works better than what was on Big Convoy. I forget if it was the re-release or the original version, but one of them, the gradient just seemed a little bit weirdly abrupt and cut off in places. Here it seems to kind of flow a little bit better. And of course you've got all that really nice molded detail for the hair. There is some very obvious robot junk underneath all of this, but I really don't care. This guy doesn't really pose much, so you're pretty much just going to have him sitting like this, or I guess if you wanted turned around like this, and it's not ideal having him facing this way, but the darker blue for these thighs does kind of work with the black a little bit better. I also like the added touch of the blood on the tusks there. That's so over the top. And then in place of the slightly more friendly eyes on Big Convoy and the definitely more friendly eyes of the reissue, this guy's just got these blood red eyes, which makes him look like the evilest elephant. Yeah, there's not much else I can say about this guy, really. He's just a brick that is well detailed, but still a brick, but also still imposing. Anyway, size-wise, he is absolutely massive compared to a standard-ish size deluxe. Granted, he's not a deluxe figure, but still, this thing, I feel like if you stacked 2 or 3 downshifts on top of each other, it'd be about the same in terms of visual mass. And here he is with the duck tank. Okay, time to transform this guy. Now, I'm gonna try to do the attack mode or whatever it's called. I'm gonna do my best. I don't know how well it's gonna go, but we'll see. And then after that, we're just gonna go straight to the robot mode. So let's do the thing. Okay, so here we have the artillery attack whatever mode, and it's interesting, but not great. I can appreciate the fact that he's got this cannon in place of his trunk, but there's definitely some weirdness going on here. Though I will say, as completely ridiculous and sort of haphazard as this looks, there's a certain, I want to say, purpose to where things go. The trunk ends up coming back around the backside, but it kind of gives him a spine going into almost like a tail, if you're just looking at it in terms of the shape. The cannon sort of replaces the trunk, like I said, and then these flaps while they are unsightly, they kind of act as ears. Like they overlap the original ears and kinda sorta could be viewed when just looking at the shape as like the ears being flared out and up. So yeah, this is weird, but I don't know, for some reason I think it works better on a Nemesis Prime. I feel like the evil version of an Optimus Prime would be the one that would do some kind of messed up body horror thing to turn an animal into an artillery station. Anyway, robot mode. And here we have Universe Nemesis Prime, the other one, in his robot mode, and this looks really, really cool. Now I know, and I do agree with the criticisms that this guy is just an immense shell former, and you could basically take off pretty much all of the mammoth bits and create a separate mammoth and still have the robot here. But I do like the kind of added bits that the mammoth parts add to this mold. And I said as much in the big convoy video too. It just bulks him out and gives him kind of an interesting looking silhouette. I really like having the tusks come off to the sides here, and I like how when you're looking at him from the sides, it almost looks like he has these big kind of like baggy, what's the word I'm looking for? Like chaps or something on. It's definitely kibble. It's a lot of kibble, but I still think that this is neat. Color-wise, I think this works better than Big Convoy. I mean, I said as much, but in robot mode especially, I really like the black and really dark blue and silver and sort of metallic-y, not really teal, but the metallic-y kind of light blue, the deep reds, and this kind of beige bone, I guess, color. I know other people have described it as being bone. But this all works so well, and this works so much better in the Nemesis color scheme for me. This makes me so much happier than the regular Big Convoy and the reissue did. He's a big, imposing, threatening-looking robot, and having him in the Nemesis color scheme really helps to convey that better than if he's, you know, supposed to be friendly old Optimus Prime. As before with Big Convoy and the like, you do have the shoulder bits that you can rotate up that have the missile pod details kind of in there, and here they are painted. I think in the regular Big Convoy they weren't painted. I believe they were painted in the reissue, but I like the red on black here that we get with Nemesis. The other accents are also really nice with like the metallic-y blues in several key places to just pick out a couple of fine details, and then these reds in just a couple of places in the legs, pretty much just the legs actually. I guess technically speaking, they're also in these little club things that you can pull out there, but you don't get a lot of that red. And I like how the chest kind of has a more organic feel to it in the sense that it's more rounded shapes and it looks more like, I don't want to say standard, but it looks like a more humanoid set of pectorals and stomach muscles. Obviously stylized, obviously not actually organic, but it kind of has that look. And there's the Maxima logo in his chest for some reason. And inside you've got the Dead Matrix. I believe this is the Dead Matrix anyway, with some nice detailing that was painted, which I really appreciate that, how they not just painted the inside silver, but they painted these individual details red and blue as well. And he can hold that loosely and whatever. I like that this is included. I'm not big on Optimus Prime Matrix gimmicks, you all know this by now, but I appreciate that it's there. The other thing that I think is cool with regards to his chest design is the fact that it's more organic looking, but it still evokes Optimus Prime, or in this case Nemesis Prime, because you've got these clear bits right here. And that just kind of gives it that more classic Optimus Prime chest window feel. In addition, you've got these bits up here that kind of read like chest lights from the truck cap. So I like that there are just little touches here and there, even with the head, which we'll look at more in a minute, but like that head crest and the mouth plate, that's all very, very Optimus Prime. It's got this weird asymmetry, which I think is just kind of part of what they were doing at the time, where this arm is almost looks like it's had like the armor plating stripped off and it's like been replaced by some kind of Deus Ex augmentation surgeon or something like that, and this arm is a little bit more in keeping with the style of the rest of the figure. It's a little weird, but I don't mind it, and I think the colors at least work a little bit more in its favor with the Nemesis color scheme. And now the head, which is pretty much evil Optimus Prime. It's got that very notable Optimus Prime head crest thingy and the mouth plate, but now he's got these kind of fold-out horns on the sides, which I think works. It doesn't necessarily evoke anything about the animal mode, but it does work. Unfortunately, my neck is kind of loose. I did go in there and tighten it a bit, but it's still a little floppy from certain angles. It holds better from others. Another thing I did was I actually went in and painted the eyes. Basically, I had the head open while I was trying to tighten it, and I decided, what the heck, I'll paint the eyes. Because the eyes are originally this translucent red color, and that's fine, but he doesn't have a piping block in the back of his head, so the light piping is completely useless and it makes his eyes look completely dead. So I went in and painted the eyes red and then did like a little bit of a metallic-y red over the top of that. I don't know if the metallicness comes off that well, but I think it makes his eyes stand out way better. And before we move on to size comparisons, there is his giant cannon thing, which you can store on his back by clipping it back in place here. I can't find a way to clip it on the back there that it doesn't get in the way of the arm articulation or just look terrible. So I end up just putting it in his hand. And that's just a matter of folding out that peg and pegging it into his hand. And then I like to kind of wrap these panels around a little bit to just kind of make the gun look a little bit more solid. And now he's got his very large, imposing looking cannon. Unfortunately, his arm, like his elbow joint, just isn't strong enough to support. Really gonna. Okay, never mind. His elbow is strong enough to support it, I guess. But yeah, it's big and it's unwieldy, but I still kind of love it. I think it looks cool when he's just holding it. All right, let's get him back here, and you can see that with that trunk it goes up quite a ways. Let's get him adjusted and do our size comparisons. Here he is with a couple of standard-ish deluxes, and as with the mammoth mode and robot mode, he is clearly significantly larger. Though I will say about 1/4, maybe even 1/3 of his elephant mass is now in this giant cannon, so it diminishes the effect somewhat. And here he is with the duck tank. And that is going to do it for Transformers Universe Nemesis Prime, the other one. I absolutely love this. I know I said it already, but I just think it's kind of funny how I never really got into the big convoy mold before because it just didn't quite do it for me. Even though I knew that there were some cool elements there, it didn't really grab me. But in the Nemesis color scheme, this looks incredible. And I'm more than willing to put up with a few finicky bits, like the gun perhaps being a little too big and unwieldy for his arms, the weirdly wiggly head, which I still don't quite understand, but I just don't care. This thing looks too freaking cool. But regardless of all of that, that is going to do it for Transformers Universe Nemesis Prime, the other one. Thank you everybody for watching. As per usual, feel free to chime in down below with your thoughts on what you think of this figure. I always enjoy hearing from you all. As always, art is more than meets the eye, and next time, we're going to stick with the official Transformers, but we're going to do something that's, let's say, a little older.